What is up guys, it is Ross and welcome back to another Mario Kart Wii Limitless vehicle showcase and developer commentary. In this episode we will be going over the Blue Falcon. And the Blue Falcon is an extremely unique vehicle, one of the most unique vehicles in the mod I would say, for one very specific reason. It is a kart with inside drift. And this seems to be a very common archetype to give it among vehicle modes, right? It's inside drift in Rebalanced. I believe it was also inside drift in Wii Deluxe, or at least it was at one point. Actually, nah, maybe it's not like this in Whack Track Pack, but again, I could be wrong. But yeah, it just makes sense to give the Blue Falcon inside drift because obviously the Blue Falcon is from F-Zero and that game is kind of completely different from Mario Kart, and giving Blue Falcon inside drift is a very good way to reference the differences that are present in that series. Also, another box that inside drift Blue Falcon checks is that it gives a kart inside drift, which is an extremely good way to bring some creativity into your mod. Obviously, it's really good for casual players because a lot of casual players in Mario Kart Wii sort of lament the fact that karts have outside drift in the base game, and some of them like the option of playing karts on inside drift. There's been a bit of an inside drift kart revolution in Retro Rewind as of late, which may or may not be due to the man, the myth, the legend, Dog Lord. But yeah, casual players really like inside drift karts, and so having a vehicle in Mario Kart Wii Limitless demonstrate that playstyle is very good for the sake of having variety. Like, a lot of people respect the Blue Falcon's identity. They respect the fact that if we're going to have an inside drift kart, making a Blue Falcon makes sense due to its source material. There has been some mild pushback having Blue Falcon inside drift. Like, it has caused a bit of controversy because people, like, its vanilla incarnation of just being a lightweight jet setter is also quite well liked. Like, Blue Falcon is also a very popular vehicle among the Mario Kart Wii, the vanilla crowd. But the vehicles that dislike Blue Falcon having inside drift are very much a sound minority compared to the ones that do prefer inside drift, which, I mean, it makes sense. Like, obviously having an inside drift car in the mod in the first place should be prioritized, and Blue Falcon, again, I cannot stress it enough, it's simply the best candidate, you know what I mean? But yeah, that is quite enough about Blue Falcon having inside drift. I think you all get the picture by now. So, what else about Blue Falcon makes it special? Well, if you've noticed, Blue Falcon is a very fast vehicle. Like, this is another way where Blue Falcon ties into its source material of F-Zero. This thing is very, very fast. I think of all the regular transmission manual karts, it is the fastest by a decent amount. Like, this thing runs rings around even the Flame Flyer, which is pretty insane. Like, the fact that you can outmatch the Flame Flyer in raw speed, you know, that's definitely going to give you a high ceiling for sure. However, Blue Falcon is in kind of a similar boat to Sneakster and Spear, where even though its top speed is very, very high, the rest of its stats are kind of middling, because speed is kind of all it has. Like, this vehicle's weight isn't very good. This thing's acceleration is mildly above average, but it's nothing special. The handling is dreadful. The handling is, I think, one of the worst in the game. And there is a reason for that I will touch on later. Its drift isn't that bad, but because of how inside drift as a mechanic works for karts, it's actually pretty terrible in practice. Well, maybe not so much terrible, but it's very stiff. Like, the entry angle that Blue Falcon gets for turns really just isn't there compared to any other kart in the game. even karts with like objectively terrible drift arcs like Classic Dragster will feel more flexible than this thing. And that's just how inside drift works for karts. The thing about inside drift karts is that karts themselves can't really lean. The reason why it works for bikes is because I believe bikes like lean whenever they turn, and that affects their turning radius a lot. Blue Falcon doesn't have that, so that's obviously a limitation that players who pick up the Blue Falcon will have to be challenged by. So yeah, its drift sucks, and also its off-road isn't good either. I believe it's actually the worst in the game, and its mini turbo is, I think, the lowest of all of the non-Corsa karts. So basically, of all of the karts that are balanced around manual drift, Blue Falcon's is the lowest. So yeah, this thing, very much, you are relying on your speed advantage with Blue Falcon. Now, inside drift does have a few benefits. Like, it doesn't have to commit to turns. It doesn't have to commit to entering turns nearly as much as other karts do. But it's of little comfort when stuff like that can happen, you know what I mean? Raw speed is pretty much the name of the game with Blue Falcon. The thing about it is, though, Corsas beat Blue Falcon in the speed department by a pretty significant amount. But as you'd expect, they cannot access mini turbos. And Blue Falcon, even though its mini turbo durations are not great, if it can build a super mini turbo, its super mini turbos are actually pretty decent. Like, the fact that it's a kart kind of nullifies how terrible its mini turbo stat is. Like, look, the orange mini turbo lasts more than a second, which is kind of crazy for a vehicle that fast. And also, Blue Falcon's terrible drift in this context is a blessing in disguise because it can charge super mini turbos. God, I love micro bounces. It can charge super mini turbos so much easier than just about any other kart in the game, provided that it can make the turn, of course. And finally, even though Blue Falcon's drift isn't very good, Limitless has brake drifting, which can somewhat soften up its turning difficulties. So if you need to use brake drifting, go ahead. As I've stated, you're probably getting a pretty strong orange mini turbo out of it, so you will be able to get back up to no speed in good time. Yeah, that very much makes sense, Mr. Roston. Now, what I've just described might honestly make it seem like Blue Falcon is not a very, like, how should I say? It doesn't have a very high ceiling despite its high speed. And there is like a bit of element of truth in that. Like Blue Falcon being so specialized in speed does limit its potential in front running to a certain extent compared to vehicles like Mini Beast and Wildwing, right? But because Blue Falcon has inside drift and is a kart, therefore does not have to worry about wheelie bumps at all, Blue Falcon is actually a deceptively annoying pack player because it can just harass bikers, and Blue Falcon has actually been one of the more consistent high tiers in the mod's history, primarily for that reason. Like, being able to harass bikers in a thick pack is just such a strong advantage to have, and such an annoying advantage to deal with. Like, and the fact that Blue Falcon is pretty small, and even though it's not very nimble, it doesn't have to deal with mini turbos nearly as often, which can give it some agency in its movements. It can actually hold its own in a pack surprisingly okay. Like, despite its stiffness, you might be a little hard-pressed to hit this thing. And obviously, even though it's a lightweight, the fact that it's immune to wheelie bumps means that bikers may have a bit of a challenge in trying to deal with it. Because the thing is, it's taking, like, similar lines to a whole buttload of other vehicles. I don't know, it's just like, not having to worry about wheeling is always nice. And I think the fact that Blue Falcon blends that karting trait with the very unique niche of having inside drift I don't know, I think it's always going to have a place as long as its running potential isn't watered down too much, if that makes sense. Oh, and just as a final aside, Blue Falcon not having a good mini turbo stat means that you can actually perform an auto somewhat competently with it. And the reason why I said before that its handling stat sucks for a reason is because its handling stat used to be much higher, and auto Blue Falcon was just so easy to use that it, like, nobody played manual, like, it was absurd. Which, obviously, that had to be addressed, like, its handling stat got nerfed, and manual Blue Falcon could officially exist once again. So that about wraps up the Blue Falcon commentary. Very unique vehicle, I would highly recommend giving it a shout. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to check out the previous parts if you haven't already, and the next parts when they come out. And until then, that is Ross, signing out. Goodbye.